Welcome to a Blindfold Battle of Titans. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Boris Gelfand in a clash that promises tactical fireworks. Let's dive in, and we open with a classic four-knight Spanish game. Both players develop their pieces symmetrically and logically, building a solid foundation for the middle game battle to come. Carlsen drops his bishop back to c4, a standard and solid developing move, keeping the pressure on. And here's the first surprise. Gelfand pushes his pawn to d6, a brilliant sacrifice. He's giving up a pawn to seize the initiative, planning to challenge White's center and open lines for his pieces. Carlsen accepts the challenge, and the knight on f3 snaps off the knight on d4, and the pawn recaptures on d4. A great move, and in fact, the only way to make the sacrifice work. The idea is that after this recapture, White has to be very careful not to lose a piece. White repositions his knight to d5, but Gelfand is ready, developing his own knight and then pushing the pawn to c6, perfectly executing the plan behind his earlier sacrifice. And Carlsen finds a fantastic response. The knight retreats to f4, the only move to keep the balance. The deep idea here is to prepare for a kingside pawn storm and keep the pressure on. Now we see a period of strategic development. Both sides fianchetto their dark-squared bishops, tuck their kings away safely by castling, and start maneuvering their pieces for the long fight ahead. Gelfand brings his queen out to h4, probing the kingside. This prompts a knight retreat from Carlsen, and then black offers a trade of bishops on e6, and now it's Carlsen's turn for a brilliant move. The knight jumps to g3. This is a sound sacrifice, offering the bishop on a2 to open the a-file for his rook and prepare to push the f-pawn. Gelfand takes the bait, capturing the bishop on a2, and Carlsen recaptures with the rook. His plan has worked to perfection, seizing the open a-file. The center opens up as pawns are exchanged on d5. Both sides then fix the pawn structure and begin to build up pressure, leading to a very tense and complex middle game. And now a long maneuvering phase begins. Both players are incredibly patient, shuffling their pieces, improving their positions bit by bit, and probing for any weakness to exploit. The strategic dance continues. Knights reroute, rooks eye key files, and bishops get ready to strike. It's a high-level game of cat and mouse, with both players waiting for the right moment, still more patient maneuvering. The kings take a step to the side for extra safety, and the major pieces continue to jockey for the best squares. The tension is slowly building. Finally, Carlsen starts to make progress. He pushes the b-pawn to b5, creating real tension on the queen side. Gelfand responds, but White's pieces coordinate beautifully to increase the pressure, leading to an exchange of pawns. Carlsen recaptures on b5, and black pushes his own pawn to b6, trying to lock things down. And here's a key move from White. The knight leaps into e5, a fantastic outpost right in the heart of the position. Gelfand decides to cash in, and his queen takes the pawn on b5. But this allows Carlsen to launch what will become a decisive attack. Boom! The knight takes the pawn on g6. A stunning and brilliant sacrifice from Magnus Carlsen, tearing open the defenses around the black king and starting the winning combination. Gelfand has no choice. The pawn must recapture the knight on g6, and that was the point. The rook on e1 snaps up the knight on e6, a great follow-up and the only move to keep the attack roaring. And here's why it works. If the queen moves to a4, White's queen simply takes the pawn on d5. After king to g7, the bishop drops to e1, and black is losing a piece. Gelfand tries to defend with his rook to c6, but Carlsen simply retreats his attacking rook to e2, preparing the final wave of the assault. And here, Gelfand makes an inaccuracy that speeds up his demise. He wanted to get his king out of the way, but there was a much better defense. The best try was rook to c7. After pawn to g4, queen to d7, and pawn to g5, black could still fight on. But in the game, Gelfand plays his king to h7, and now White's attack becomes overwhelming, and Carlsen immediately punishes the mistake, pushing his pawn to g4. Pawns are traded, and White's queen arrives on g4 with devastating effect. Black's queen swings over to a4, but this is another inaccuracy in a tough spot. The best defense was rook to b8. Instead, this allows Carlsen to push his pawn to f5, cracking the position wide open. And there it is. The pawn rams forward to f5, and black's defensive structure completely collapses. In this desperate position, Gelfand makes a mistake, and it's a costly one. He had to keep his bishop active. The necessary move was bishop to d8. After rook to b1, rook to c7, and rook to e8, black is still defending. But instead, the bishop retreats to g7. This allows a crushing blow, though Carlsen misses the instant win here, which was queen to h3 check, winning the rook on c8. A rare slip from Magnus. He plays the rook to b1, a strong move, but he missed the killer blow. As we saw, queen to h3 check was the most clinical line, winning a full rook on the spot. And now Gelfand makes another mistake, putting himself right back in a lost position. He couldn't resist the pawn, but there was a better try. The best chance was still rook to b8. After rook to g1, queen takes the bishop, and rook to e6. Black is fighting on, though down a piece. But in the game, the pawn takes the pawn on f5, and this walks right into another winning attack for white. Carlsen recaptures with queen takes pawn on f5 with check, and while this is winning, it's another slight inaccuracy. The most precise move was queen to h5 check, which would have forced the win of the rook on c8. Black's king steps to h8, but in this desperate situation, it's another inaccuracy. This allows white to reorganize for the final blow with queen to h3 check, leading to a winning attack. And for a third time, Carlsen misses the most direct path. He plays his rook to g2, which is still completely winning, but queen to h3 check was again the fastest way, winning a piece immediately. And this is the final decisive blunder of the game. Gelfand goes for a desperate attack, but it walks straight into a forced checkmate. Queen to a7, bishop to d6, rook takes pawn on c2, bishop to e5, rook to c1. Check instead, he plays rook takes the pawn on c2, and now Magnus has a forced mate in 8 moves, starting with a check on h5. And this time, Carlsen finds it. The queen slides to h5 with check. This is the only move and the beginning of a beautiful forced mating sequence. The king is forced to g8, exactly where white wants it. And here it comes. The rook takes the bishop on g7, check. A brilliant and decisive sacrifice to smash through the last line of defense. The king is now completely exposed. Black must recapture, and the king takes the rook on g7. And now, the final king hunt begins. The rook comes to g1 with check, forcing the king out to f6. The queen joins in at g6 check, driving the king further into the open at e5, and the bishop delivers the final blow from d6. Checkmate. A beautiful finish to a spectacular attacking game. What a game. After a complex strategic battle, Magnus Carlsen unleashed a brilliant sacrificial attack, navigating a few inaccuracies to deliver a picture-perfect checkmate. White wins in style.